Hello, today we're going to talk about applicant tracking systems, everything you need to know to beat the system. Hi, my name is Emily McIsaac and I'm the Student Engagement and Instructional Librarian here at Holland College. Please feel free to reach out to me at any time at ermcisaac@hollandcollege.com. So the goal of this session is to break down the applicant tracking system and understand how it works. And for the rest of the session, I'm going to be using the term ATS, which stands for Applicant Tracking System. And of course, I want to give you some tips and tricks of how to format your resume so you're picked up by this tracking software for you to be screened into job competitions. How many companies use an ATS? Well, 98% of Fortune 500 companies use an ATS program when hiring new employees. So that means that big companies like the government, these Fortune 500 companies, larger institutions like perhaps Dalhousie, or just large institutions that would receive a lot of resumes for every job that they post would use an applicant tracking system. Okay, so let's break it down a little bit further. What is an ATS? Well, it's a software that uses artificial intelligence, or AI, and natural language processing to score and sort resumes based on how well they align with the job requirements. Okay, great. What does that mean? Well, we'll talk about how it works. First, the ATS scans and evaluates resumes based on specific parameters. Then, candidates who don't fit the criteria are removed from the pile. Those who do are screened in and then ranked based on the job description. And then finally, the HR department reviews a smaller pile of resumes based on what the ATS has given to them. So some of us might be asking, well, how does the ATS rank resume categories? They look at the qualifications, education, and job titles more so than anything else. However, it's hard for us to know the ranking system because every company is different, therefore every parameter is different. So a general guideline is to include as many words in the job posting as you can because the ATS software is trying to scan your resume and look for those buzzwords that are in the job posting, so keep that in mind. Beware of knockout questions. You'll see things like, do you have at least 5 years experience? This is a question you have to answer honestly, and if you say no, then you're immediately removed from the pile. But you'll see other questions that are a short answer, a yes or no question, a scale of 1 to 5, select all that apply, and there's also job-specific knockout questions such as, do you have this degree? Do you have experience working with X software or whatever? Are you willing to relocate for work? All these types of questions are considered knockout questions, and depending on how you answer, will either knock you out right away or you'll be considered for a further process of screening. Okay, so let's talk about how to format your resume for an ATS. Now that we know what it does, how can we get screened into job competitions? You want to keep it simple. Unfortunately, with ATS, we don't want to be too creative because the system can't pick it up. It doesn't see your beautiful logo, your beautiful photo, or a graph you may have put into your resume to make things look easier to read. It is not compliant with ATS. So here are some resume formatting tips. Use a traditional format. And what does that mean? Well, you want to start with your name and your contact information. That should always be the biggest information at the top of your resume. And then the next section should be the skills and qualifications summary, your education, your work experience, and finally end with volunteer experience. This is an example of an ATS compliant resume. This is for a new grad, which I found on JobScan, which is a website where you can find ATS compliant resume templates. This is a perfect example of what a resume should look like, as you have your education first, relevant industry work experience, and then additional work experience can be the volunteer experience or anything else you'd like to include. So let's continue on with more tips. Create a chronological or hybrid resume. A chronological resume captures your work experience under each job you have had from most recent to the oldest. A functional resume groups your skills and job functions or expertise and then lists your jobs near the bottom of the document. So that means a hybrid resume combines the chronological resume format and the functional resume format. So it highlights the job seeker's skills and achievements in the first section, like a functional resume, and then it has the work experience in chronological order, like the chronological resume. So Google that if that is confusing for you, but basically you want to have a resume that highlights your skills and is as relevant to the job posting as possible. Which is my second point. Use the job posting as a tool. Use as many words from the job posting as you can and ensure that you're including relevant information that speaks to the job posting as well as those buzzwords that are included. Use your resume skill section to your advantage. So that means if there's any additional things that you have but don't quite know where to put it in your resume, put it in the skill section of your resume so you can beef up what you're already saying, and then include long form and acronym versions of keywords, such as I have my MLIS degree, or the long form is Masters of Library and Information Studies degree. So I would include both of those terms in my cover letter and my resume. Make sure you're avoiding pictures, graphs, columns, and logos. Avoid putting information in the header or footer of a Word document because the ATS cannot pick up that information. Use traditional serif fonts. So that means you're using Calibri, Helvetica, Times New Roman, Arial, all those traditional fonts you'd see like in an email or a Word document, rather than curly Q or changing it up to be something that is less traditional. Always submit your resume as a Word doc, not as a PDF. All of these things that I've mentioned in the last two slides are super important because if you wanted to include a graph or use a fun font and then submit it as a PDF, all of these things are very small actions that can actually make it impossible for the ATS to read your beautiful resume. It scrambles up all the information and then you're not being screened into jobs. So these things are crucial to remember because it doesn't seem like a big deal and it's not in the large scheme of things, but to be picked up by an ATS software, you want to make sure you're following these tips. And this is like the seventh time I've said this, but be sure you're including the exact words and phrases from the job posting. The ATS is not going to make the connection between what you've written and what is in the job posting criteria. They need to match exactly for the ATS to screen in your resume. I think the best tip I can give you is to create a unique resume and an ATS compliant resume because I have given sessions in the past that negates some of the advice I've just given, but that's because PEI has small businesses that mean you can create a fun resume and hand your resume to a hiring manager or email your resume to a personal email address for you to have that resume looked at by an HR department rather than a software. If you're applying to a government job, a law firm, bigger institution, they might use an ATS, which is when your ATS compliant resume would make the most sense. But if you're able to hand somebody your resume or have a conversation on LinkedIn or anything like that, having a fun resume isn't a bad thing. So always check the company to see how large they are and make that decision. And of course, never recreate the wheel. Find templates from Canva, JobScan, and Novo Resume websites because they can help you create beautiful resumes without going to a blank Word doc and starting from scratch because that is so challenging to do. How accurate are ATS? Well, 88% of employers felt that qualified, high-skilled candidates were screened out of competitions. So that's really daunting and unfortunate to know, but take matters into your own hands and reach out to hiring managers if you can by emailing them or finding them on LinkedIn and sending them your resume to say that you're interested in the position and you want to be seen as a potential candidate. So this isn't going to happen all the time, but try to make sure you can take matters into your own hands so you are screened in or at least make a connection with a human. So remember that you are qualified, but you want to take all of my advice or some of my advice so you're not overlooked by this silly software that will screen you out, and it will take some trial and error to find out which resumes work best for you and which resumes screen you into more jobs. But don't get discouraged because it's all silly formatting things. It's not about qualifications. Here's my reference list for many of the quotes I've used throughout the slideshow, as well as very helpful ATS-friendly resume templates, as well as articles about the subject. Thank you so much for watching, and please remember to follow us on social media at Holland College Libraries on Facebook and Instagram, and feel free to reach out at any time. Thank you!